The screen is not dark. It is blindingly white. A sterile, silent room. 1943. The only sound is the slow, rhythmic scratch of a fountain pen on paper. Extreme close-up on the pen's nib, gliding with surgical precision. It writes numbers. Columns of them. Height, weight, age. But in the final column, instead of a diagnosis, there is only a single elegant checkmark. The handwriting is impeccable. The camera pulls back to reveal the hand holding the pen. It is steady. The sleeve is crisp, gray wool of an SS uniform. We see the face of the man. Dr. Hermann Wolter, early 40s. His eyes are not those of a monster. They are the eyes of a focused archivist, a man utterly absorbed in a logical task. He finishes the page, sets the pen down with a quiet click. He looks up, and for the first time, we see what is in front of him. Through a large observation window, we see a group of women and children, confused, shivering in rough camp uniforms. They are not patients. They are specimens. Wolter's gaze sweeps over them, analytical, detached. He gives a slight, almost imperceptible nod to an officer standing by the door. His expression is one of mild professional satisfaction. A job well done. Sharp cut. The sound of childish laughter. Not recorded, but alive, ringing through a sunlit room. Berlin, 1937. The same hands. But now they are not holding a pen. They are carefully, tenderly fastening the small leather straps on a child's shoe. Hermann Wolter, now in a fine wool sweater, kneels on the polished floor of his spacious apartment. His daughter, Lena, 4 years old, giggles as he pretends the shoe is a little mouse looking for its home. His face is transformed. Warmth, affection, a calm, unshakable love. This is the real man. This is the center of his universe. We follow him through his day, but now every moment is viewed through the lens of the horrific prologue. His walk to the private clinic is a stroll through a city dressing itself for a new era. Red banners with black symbols hang from clean buildings, not as threats, but as part of the scenery, like new streetlights. He passes a construction site where a new hospital wing is being built. A plaque praises national health and progress. Wolter's eyes linger on it with genuine interest. He sees the future. At his clinic, he is not just a doctor. He is a scientist priest. His examination rooms are temples of order. He diagnoses a young athlete with a heart murmur. His manner is kind, but his mind is already in the future. A weak valve, he explains to the concerned young man. It can be managed, but you must consider the hereditary implications for your own children. The problem is not just the individual ailment. It is the potential flaw in the genetic chain. This is how his mind works. Systemically. The challenge comes not in a fiery speech, but in a closed-door meeting. His superior, Professor Keller, a man whose career has suddenly soared with the new political winds, slides a file across his desk. It is for a patient Wolter has never met. A boy, 8 years old. Detailed charts show a history of what looks like epileptic episodes and antisocial behavior. The diagnosis, already typed, reads congenital mental defectiveness. The recommended treatment, stamped by a new state board Wolter has heard about, is permanent institutionalization. This requires a second confirming signature from a physician of your standing, Wolter, Keller says, his tone casual, bureaucratic. The family is a drain. The boy is incurable. The new protocols are clear. We look at the broader health of the nation, not just sentimental cases. Wolter opens the file. He studies the charts. The data is sloppy, inconclusive. He sees the boy's name, He sees a small, blurry school photo, a normal-looking child. This is not medicine. This is paperwork, facilitating a disappearance. He looks up. Keller's face is a mask of expectant collegiality. On the wall behind him is a portrait of the new chancellor, next to a diagram of the human genome. Progress and tradition, authority and science. Wolter thinks of his own daughter, Lena, her perfect health, the clean genetic line he believes he and his wife represent. He thinks of the new hospital wing, the resources, the promise of a society free from the burden of incurables. He thinks of his career, now delicately poised. To refuse is to brand himself a sentimentalist, an obstacle to progress, a man who doubts the new science and the new state. It is professional suicide. The silence in the room stretches. It is the silence of a universe dividing. He looks back at the file, at the photo. He does not see a child. He sees a faulty component in a grand machine. A painful but necessary calculation is being made in his mind. The logic of systemic health overrides the instinct of individual care. It is a clinical decision. He picks up his own fountain pen, the same one we saw in the prologue. It feels heavy. He unscrews the cap. The sound is deafening in the quiet room. He signs his name on the approval line. His signature is just as impeccable, just as steady, as the check marks he will make years later. It is not a rushed scrawl. It is a deliberate final act. He closes the file, slides it back, says nothing. Professor Keller smiles, a thin, satisfied curve of the lips. You have a clear vision, Hermann. You understand the future. Wolter leaves the office. He walks down the sterile corridor of his clinic. He stops at a window, looking out at the city. The world looks exactly the same, but it is not. He has just crossed an invisible border. He has diagnosed the society as the patient and prescribed his first dose of moral poison. The taste is bitter, but he tells himself it is the taste of necessary medicine. He goes home. He plays with Lena on the living room floor. He holds her, breathing in the scent of her hair. His love for her is absolute, terrifying in its intensity. It is this very love, this desire for a perfect, safe future for her, that has just justified his first act of bureaucratic murder. The connection is unconscious, but it is ironclad. To protect this purity, he has begun to sanitize the world. That night in his study, he opens a medical journal. An article details advanced research in heredity. He reads it with fervent interest. He is building a better world, a cleaner world, one checkmark at a time. The camera holds on his focused face, lit by the single lamp. The shadows around him are deep and growing. The chapter ends, not with a bang, but with the quiet, irrevocable click of a lock turning. The door to his humanity is now slightly ajar. And through that crack, the first chilling draft of the future begins to seep in. The year is 1939. The war is a distant thunder on the horizon, but its precursor, a quiet, bureaucratic war, is already in full swing. Hermann Wolter is no longer in his private Berlin clinic. He now works at a state-of-the-art sanatorium called Haus Sonnenblick, Sunview House. The name is a cruel, pristine lie. The facility is all gleaming white tile, long, silent corridors, flooded with harsh artificial light, and the constant low hum of industrial machinery. It smells of antiseptic and boiled vegetables, a smell so strong it seems to erase all others. This is not a place of healing in the old sense. It is a laboratory for social hygiene. Wolter's transition here was presented as a promotion, a chance to work on the cutting edge of psychiatric and genetic research. He accepted, driven by a complex engine of ambition, intellectual curiosity, and the chilling logic he first tasted when he signed that file. The outside world, with its mounting tensions and uniforms, feels chaotic. Here, within these sterilized walls, there is absolute order. A terrible, beautiful order. His daily routine is a study in dehumanizing efficiency. He no longer sees patients with names and histories. He sees cases with numbers and files. His morning begins in a conference room with other carefully selected doctors. They sit under a large, elegant chart mapping the genetic health of the population. The leader, a man named Dr. Brandt, speaks in calm, measured tones about burdens, life unworthy of life, and the mercy of release. The language is medical, soothing, and utterly devoid of conscience. Wolter listens, takes notes. The arguments are presented with graphs and statistics. The moral objection seems not just sentimental, but scientifically illiterate. Wolter's specific duty is assessment. He is part of a triage system. Every week, transport buses arrive, carrying people from state institutions across the region. The chronically mentally ill, the severely disabled, those deemed unproductive and incurable. The process is chillingly systematic. We follow him on his first full assessment day. He is given a clipboard and a stack of pre-printed forms. He enters a large, tiled observation room. On one side, behind a long glass partition, sits a row of individuals. They are disoriented, some sedated, others rocking gently. They wear simple gray smocks. They have no personal belongings. They are specimens laid out for examination. Wolter approaches the glass. His initial professional reaction is one of clinical shock. The sheer scale of human damage is overwhelming. But then, Dr. Brandt's voice echoes in his mind. See not the individual tragedy, Dr. Wolter. See the collective pathology. See the drain on the national bloodstream. He takes a breath. He focuses on his form. The first case is a young man with uncontrolled physical tremors. Wolter observes him for precisely 3 minutes. He does not speak to him. He does not touch him. He checks boxes. Motor control, severely deficient. Communication, non-viable. Likelihood of improvement, 0. He notes the man's age, 22, and thinks of the thousands of meals, the years of care, the resources expended for what? For this trembling, uncomprehending existence. A purely economic calculation clicks into place in his mind. It is sobering, even sad, but it feels irrefutably rational. He moves down the line. A middle-aged woman staring blankly at the wall. Check, check, check. An elderly man with the mind of a child. Check, check, check. With each form, the act becomes easier. The human being behind the glass begins to blur, to dissolve into a set of regrettable but clear data points. He is diagnosing a social disease, and these are its symptoms. His pen moves faster. The true test comes later. He is asked to observe a procedure. He is led not to an operating theater, but to a room that looks like a shower room. It is clean, modern. A group of selected cases from that morning's assessment are brought in, confused but calm, assured this is for hygiene. Wolter stands in an observation booth above, a silent witness. The doors seal. There is no water from the shower heads. Instead, a uniformed technician, with the bored demeanor of a factory worker, turns a valve. Wolter knows what is about to happen. The theory is one thing, the reality is another. His body tenses. His scientific mind screams to observe, to record the physiological process. His human heart, the one that kissed his daughter goodnight, contracts in a vice of primal horror. He watches the figures below clutch their throats, slump to the floor. It is not violent. It is quiet, efficient, and monstrously clinical. He does not look away. His face is a pale mask. He feels a scream building in his throat, but his professional training seals it in. To scream would be to admit this is murder. And if this is murder, then his assessments, his check marks, are death sentences. His entire world, his logic, his career would collapse into an abyss of guilt. So, he does not let it collapse. He performs a radical internal surgery. He severs the connection between the clinical act in the room below and the human suffering it causes. He thinks of the charts, the graphs, the greater good. He thinks of Lena growing up in a strong, healthy, unburdened Germany. He focuses on the technician's bored face. This is just a job, a technical process for removing a biological hazard. The horror is recategorized. It is not an atrocity. It is a difficult but necessary medical intervention, like amputating a gangrenous limb to save the body. When it is over, and the room is being cleared with the same efficiency it was filled, Wolter is drenched in a cold sweat. But his mind is clear. He has passed through the fire. The last fragile barrier has been incinerated. He has looked into the heart of the machine and, instead of seeing a monster, he has seen a logical, if grim, solution. That evening, back in his small, temporary apartment at the sanatorium, he tries to write a letter to Anna. He wants to describe the cherry blossoms in the institution's garden. But his hand freezes. The image of the gray smocks on the tiled floor superimposes itself on the page. He crumples the letter. He pours a strong drink, his hand trembling only slightly. He stands at the window, looking at the perfectly manicured grounds. Haus Sonnenblick. The silence here is no longer peaceful. It is the silence of a vacuum, where conscience has been surgically removed. He has become a part of the machinery, a crucial thinking part. He is no longer just a doctor who heals. He is a physician to the folk, diagnosing and treating its illnesses on a population scale. The weight of this new identity is immense, but he mistakes it for purpose. He turns from the window. He opens his medical bag and takes out a new, heavier fountain pen, a gift from the administration for his dedicated work. He tests it on a blank sheet of paper. The line it draws is dark, unwavering, and final. The tool fits perfectly in his hand. The chapter closes not on a moment of dramatic breakdown, but on the silent, terrifying consolidation of a new self. The healer is dead. The sanitizer has taken his place. Poland. 1941. The world has shed its skin. The clean, sterile hell of Haus Sonnenblick was a rehearsal. This is the main performance. Hermann Wolter stands on the Appellplatz, the roll call square, of the newly established Konzentrationslager Lublin, later known as Majdanek. The wind does not blow here. It whips, carrying a particulate mixture of ash, dust, and a sweet, cloying, metallic smell that lodges itself in the back of the throat. The sky is a vast, indifferent gray. The order here is not clinical. It is brutal, military, geometric in its cruelty. Barbed wire coils against the horizon like black thorn vines. Watchtowers punctuate the skyline. The sounds are a cacophony of shouted commands in guttural German, the bark of shepherd dogs, the distant ceaseless clamor of industry, and beneath it all, a low human murmur of despair, so dense it feels atmospheric. Wolter is no longer just a doctor in a white coat. He is Hauptsturmführer Dr. Wolter of the SS. The uniform is immaculate, the skull insignia gleaming with a dark polish. He arrived with a wave of administrative personnel, part of the vast bureaucratic engine needed to process the Eastern problem. His initial shock was not moral, but sensory. The sheer scale, the filth, the raw, naked suffering, it was an assault on his cultivated senses. For days, he moved through the camp in a state of near disassociation, his mind retreating behind the wall of protocols and paperwork. His assigned task is selection. Selection. The word is now the axis of his existence. The process is a grotesque perversion of his triage work at the sanatorium. There, the cases arrived passively. Here, they are delivered in living, breathing, terrified cargo. Cattle trains grind to a halt at the ramp inside the camp. The doors are thrown open. A human river, stunned, disgorged into the blinding daylight. Men, women, children, the old clutching pathetic bundles, their eyes wide with the animal confusion of the hunted. Wolter's post is at a critical juncture. He stands with a small group of officers and a few other medical personnel, a tableau of absolute authority amidst the chaos. A table is set up with nothing but a ledger. His role is not to interact, not to diagnose in any traditional sense. His role is to categorize, and to do so with a speed that defies human consideration. The river of people is forced into a ragged line. They shuffle past his table. He has seconds for each one. His gaze, once used to discern subtle symptoms, now performs a brutal calculus. It sweeps over a person from head to toe and renders a verdict. His left hand, resting on the ledger, points. A simple, almost lazy gesture. Point left, to the camp, for labor, a temporary reprieve in a world of death. Point right, to a row of waiting trucks, or to a column being marched towards a distant, low-lying building with a strangely large chimney. Right means immediate extermination. The sick, the old, the too young, the visibly weak, the intellectual types his briefings warned about. The gesture is so small. A flick of the wrist. It requires less physical effort than signing his name. Yet its consequence is apocalyptic. The first time he performed this duty, his mind screamed. The face of a mother clutching two children, her eyes locking with his for a fleeting second. It was a direct current of human pleading that threatened to short-circuit his entire being. He felt a physical nausea, a tremor in his pointing finger. But the system around him is designed to annihilate hesitation. An impatient SSNCO glares if he takes too long. The line must keep moving. The train must be emptied. The schedule is paramount. Slowing down is disorder. Disorder is treason. Furthermore, he sees other doctors doing it. Calmly, dispassionately, it is simply the work. The logic of the sanitarium is amplified 1,000-fold. This is not about individuals. This is about hygiene on a continental scale. These people, in the view now burned into his psyche, are carriers of a political and racial disease. His pointing finger is not delivering death. It is performing a drastic, urgent quarantine. To survive the psychological onslaught, he develops a technique. He stops seeing people. He sees categories. Arbeitsfähig, fit for work. Nicht arbeitsfähig, unfit. He reduces them to the very flaws he assesses. A limp, a cough, a frail frame, too many children in tow. He focuses on the ledger, on the neat columns where numbers are tallied. 500 from Transport 7A, 700 from Transport 9C. The numbers are clean. They are manageable. They have no eyes. no voices. A transformation occurs, not in a day, but over relentless, grinding weeks. The horror does not disappear. It becomes mundane. The unthinkable becomes routine. The pointing of his finger loses its emotional weight. It becomes a mechanical action, like a machine part clicking into place. He finds a grim pride in his efficiency, in his ability to maintain clinical detachment amidst the bedlam. He is mastering the environment. The power, once overwhelming, begins to feel natural. His gaze, sweeping over the endless lines, holds the absolute power of life and death. It is a narcotic, potent, and terrifying. He feels not like a murderer, but like a god of a ruined world, applying a ruthless, natural law. One afternoon, after a particularly long selection from a train packed with Jews from the Warsaw Ghetto, he returns to his office, a spare barracks room with a desk. His hand, the pointing hand, aches dully. He pours himself a glass of schnapps from a bottle in his drawer. He looks at his reflection in the dark window glass. The face that looks back is thinner, harder, the eyes set deeper, like stones in frozen ground. He does not recognize the man from Berlin. That man is a ghost, a faint, sentimental memory. He opens the ledger from the day. The numbers stare back at him. He takes a sip of the harsh alcohol. The burn feels like purification. He has crossed into a new country, whose borders are defined by wire and smoke, and whose only law is the efficiency of the selection. He is no longer a participant in the system. He has become its keen, sharp, and utterly indispensable instrument. The chapter ends with him sitting in the gathering dark, the only light from a single bulb overhead, listening to the distant sounds of the camp, a world he now rules over with a flick of his finger, and feeling for the first time not revulsion, but a profound, chilling sense of belonging. Time has lost its linear meaning in Majdanek. It is measured not in days or months, but in train arrivals, in the filling and emptying of barracks, in the cyclical rhythm of the gargantuan death machine. For Dr. Hermann Wolter, a profound and terrifying evolution has solidified. The initial shock, the mechanical routine, has birthed something new, a personal fiefdom of cruelty. He is no longer just an efficient cog. The absolute power he wields, the complete removal of consequence, has fermented in the dark cellar of his soul. It has given rise to a sadism so refined it masquerades as scientific inquiry. The system did not just permit his darkest instincts, it provided them with a limitless laboratory and an endless supply of test subjects. His medical duties have expanded into a ghastly personal project. He has commandeered a small, isolated barracks room, not far from the infirmary, a place other officers avoid. Inside, it is a perverse inversion of his old Berlin study. Instead of textbooks on anatomy, there are ledgers of a different kind. Instead of a child's photograph, there are rows of peculiar, mundane objects, neatly arranged on shelves. A collection of children's shoes, small and scuffed. A stack of hairbrushes, some with strands of dark hair still caught in the bristles. Eyeglasses in a neat pile, lenses cracked or missing. These are his trophies, but not in the hunter's sense. To him they are specimens, anthropological artifacts of the subhuman types he is helping to erase. They are data points in the flesh. This chapter focuses on one extended, horrific sequence, Wolter's advanced selection process. It begins on the ramp, but now his method has a chilling, personalized flair. The trucks for the right column are no longer an anonymous fate. He has taken a direct obsessive interest in the final journey, particularly for certain interesting cases. We see him on the ramp, his eyes sharper, more predatory. He spots a teenage boy with a pronounced but elegant limp, the result of a childhood polio. The boy holds the hand of his younger sister. Wolter's gaze lingers. This is not a simple categorization. A spark of vile curiosity ignites behind his eyes. He points right for both, but then he motions to a nearby SS guard. He speaks quietly. The guard peels the boy and his sister from the line. They are not taken directly to the trucks. They are escorted, confused and terrified, to Wolter's private barracks room. The boy is forced to sit. Wolter approaches, not with violence, but with the calm, analytical air of a professor. He asks the boy to remove his trousers to examine the atrophied leg. The boy, trembling, obeys. Wolter runs his fingers over the malformed muscles, making soft, considering noises. He takes precise measurements with a caliper, noting them in a small, leather-bound journal he carries. He ignores the boy's tears, the sister's silent sobs. They are not human emotional responses. They are irrelevant physiological reactions, like a dog whining. He then turns to the sister. He examines her eyes, her posture. He is looking for signs of the same degeneracy, for hereditary clues. Finding none, he seems almost disappointed. The experiment is complete. He nods to the guard. The children are let out, not back to the ramp, but on a different path. Wolter follows at a distance. He walks, journal in hand, towards the low, squat building with the large chimney, the gas chamber, and crematorium complex. He does not go inside. He stations himself at a strategic point with a clear view of the building's entrance and, crucially, of the chimney itself. He consults a stopwatch he pulls from his pocket. This is his true, private ritual. He times it. He notes the moment the doors seal on a group. He observes the first traces of unnatural smoke from the chimney, the color and density of it. He records the duration of the emission in his journal, next to his notes on the boy's leg. He is correlating data. Physical characteristics with disposal efficiency. The number of souls with the volume of smoke. The ultimate, grotesque equation of mass death. As he stands there, his face is a study in focused intensity. There is no pleasure in the common sense, no smile. Instead, there is the profound, engrossed satisfaction of a scientist witnessing a validated hypothesis. The horror of the scene, the muffled sounds, the smoke, the unspeakable reality, is completely filtered out. All that remains is the process, the numbers, the clean, clinical certainty of cause and effect. His own personal monstrous science. Later, back in his room, he updates his ledgers. The numbers from the ramp, the notes from his special examination, the timings from the chimney. He files it all away with fastidious care. He pours a drink. He might even allow himself a small private sigh, not of remorse but of professional fatigue. The work is demanding. The chapter's climax is a moment of profound, unsettling quiet. He is alone with his collection. He picks up a small red child's shoe from the shelf. He turns it over in his hands, not with sentiment, but with the detached interest of an archaeologist holding a relic of a dead civilization. He is the curator of an extinction he is helping to engineer. The power this gives him is absolute and intimate. He is not just following orders. He is innovating. He is adding his own layer of refined bureaucratic cruelty to the industrial slaughter. He places the shoe back exactly in its place. The room is a museum of his own moral annihilation, and he is its proud, solitary director. The line between man and monster hasn't just been crossed. It has been erased, brick by brick, replaced by the sterile architecture of his own deviant research. The external system gave him the canvas. He is now painting his own masterpiece of horror upon it, one precise, measured, and utterly soulless stroke at a time. The war has turned. The distant thunder is no longer on the horizon. It is rolling closer, a constant, oppressive rumble from the east. In Majdanek, the perfect, brutal rhythm begins to stutter. Supplies are erratic. The once confident swagger of the guards is edged with a new, sharp anxiety. The machinery of death is still operating, but it is overheating, throwing sparks. Fear, a new and unfamiliar virus, has infected the camp's masters. For Dr. Hermann Wolter, this seismic shift registers not as impending doom, but as a profound professional irritation. The systemic order he has come to worship is fracturing. Transports arrive with no clear instructions. Rival SS departments bicker over jurisdiction and dwindling resources. The elegant, logical model is breaking down into chaos. This chaos is an affront to his entire being. This chapter takes place almost entirely within one location, the long, grim administrative barracks known as Block 4. It is the nerve center of the camp's paperwork, a cathedral of bureaucracy where lives are converted into files and files into statistics. The air is thick with the smell of cheap paper, ink, and stale sweat. The rumble of Soviet artillery is a faint, persistent vibration in the floorboards. Wolter is stationed here now more often, tasked with the monumental and grotesque job of liquidation of evidence. Mountains of ledgers, prisoner cards, and execution records must be sorted, evaluated, and ultimately destroyed. But for Wolter, destruction is not the immediate goal. Preservation is. He is not trying to hide the truth. He is trying to save his life's work. We follow him through a single, relentless day within this paper prison. He moves through the chaotic space with a focused intensity that isolates him from the panic around him. Junior officers are frantically feeding documents into roaring stoves, their faces smudged with ash, eyes wide with haste. The scene is one of impending abandonment, a rat's nest of fear. Wolter operates differently. At his own desk, an island of calm in the storm, he works with meticulous, almost obsessive care. He is not burning randomly. He is curating. He goes through stacks of his own selection ledgers, the logs from the ramp, the timetables of extermination. He separates them into two piles. The first pile is for destruction. Routine lists, inventory sheets, mundane orders. These go into a crate to be fed to the flames. The second pile is his private archive. This is where his true obsession lies. He carefully extracts the leather-bound journal containing his private observations, the measurements of the lame boy, the chimney timings, the notes on his specimens. He bundles it with his most detailed statistical analyses, charts correlating prisoner types with mortality rates, his coldly written assessments of processing efficiency. These papers are not just records of murder. To him, they are groundbreaking sociological and medical research data, gathered under unique, irreplicable conditions. The value is incalculable. He catches a young, panicked adjutant grabbing a stack of files from a nearby desk, about to toss the whole lot into a fire. Wolter's hand shoots out, grabbing the man's wrist with a force that surprises them both. His voice, when he speaks, is low, icy, devoid of the ambient panic. Not these. He pulls the specific files from the stack. They are his demographic breakdowns of a recent transport from Hungary. The data is still being consolidated. The adjutant stares, bewildered, then scurries away. Wolter's intervention was not to save lives, but to save data points. The psychological core of the chapter is this. As the world that created him collapses, Wolter retreats deeper into the only reality that still makes sense, the reality of his own meticulous records. The numbers are clean. The graphs are logical. They are a fortress against the howling disorder outside. The idea that this work might be seen as criminal evidence rather than scholarly material seems to not fully compute in his mind. He is a scientist safeguarding his research from a catastrophic lab fire. Later, he is forced to venture out of the administrative block. The camp is in a state of frenzied dismantling. Bulldozers are trying to erase mass graves. Prisoners, skeletons with skin, are being worked to death, destroying evidence. The sky is stained with the smoke of burning documents and the sickly sweet smoke from the crematoria working overtime. Wolter witnesses a group of SS men, drunk and terrified, randomly shooting prisoners in a yard, not for any reason, but out of sheer spasmodic fear. This unstructured violence disgusts him. It is unscientific. It is waste. It lacks the clean, purposeful efficiency of his gas chamber timings. He returns to Block 4, to his desk. He takes out his journal. Even now, he makes an entry. Observed breakdown of procedural discipline in Sectors C and D. Unauthorized liquidations, causing statistical inconsistencies. A regrettable corruption of the data set. He writes about murder as a methodological error. The chapter ends in near darkness. The electricity has failed. Wolter sits at his desk, a single candle flickering, casting huge, wavering shadows of the paper mountains around him. He has packed his precious archive into a small, sturdy leather suitcase. He rests his hand on it. Outside, the rumble of artillery is closer. The shouts are more desperate. The world of the camp, the only world he has known for years, is dissolving into screams and fire. But here, in the circle of candlelight, with his case of data, Hermann Wolter feels a perverse sense of clarity. The mission has failed. The Reich is crumbling. But the work, his work, remains. The research is saved. He has successfully separated the pure, abstract knowledge from the messy, failing reality that produced it. In his mind, he has not been complicit in genocide. He has been conducting a grand, if terrible, experiment, and a good scientist always preserves his notes. The suitcase is not a box of damnation. It is his legacy. He blows out the candle, sitting in the perfect, silent dark, waiting, his hand still possessively on the case, a curator in the ruins of his own hell. Majdanek is no longer a functioning camp. It is a corpse, twitching in its final death throes. The summer of 1944. The Soviet advance is a roar now, shaking the ground, painting the night horizon with a false, pulsating dawn. The German machinery is in full, chaotic retreat. Most of the SS staff have fled westward in stolen vehicles, a stampede of uniforms stripped of their power, clutching looted valuables. The camp is a grotesque skeleton, empty barracks with doors swinging open, abandoned watchtowers, and the overwhelming, choking stench of a slaughterhouse that cannot be cleaned. Dr. Hermann Wolter has not fled. He remains in his quarters, a ghost in the empty officer's compound. His decision is not born of bravery or a sudden attack of conscience. It is a complete psychological break from the crumbling reality. The world outside the wire, the world of retreat, defeat, and judgment, has ceased to exist as a valid concept for him. His reality has contracted to the confines of the camp, and now, even more narrowly, to the interior landscape of his own mind. He is a captain, refusing to abandon a sinking ship because he has convinced himself the ship is the only land that exists. This chapter is a study in profound, unsettling dissociation. Wolter moves through the abandoned camp, not as a fugitive, but as a proprietor, conducting a final inventory. His uniform, though dirty, is still fastened with obsessive correctness. He carries his leather suitcase, the archive of his work. He walks the empty Appellplatz. The wind whips dust devils across the vast, barren space. In his mind's eye, he does not see emptiness. He sees the ranks of thousands, hears the ghostly echo of roll calls, the precise geometry of his selections. He visits the ramp. The train tracks are silent, rusting. He stands at his old point, and his left hand twitches at his side, performing the faint, familiar gesture of pointing left and right to phantoms. The action feels comforting, a ritual that reaffirms a world of order. The heart of the chapter is his final methodical visit to the gas chamber and crematorium complex. The doors are broken open. The machinery is silent. The smell inside is beyond description, a chemical and organic horror baked into the very bricks. Wolter enters. He is not repelled. He is assessing. He walks through the empty shower room, his footsteps echoing. He stops in the center. He closes his eyes. In the silence, he hears not screams, but the soft hiss of the gas canisters being emptied through the vents. A sound he meticulously timed. He opens his eyes and looks at the blank ceiling where the fake shower heads were. He nods slowly, as if confirming a technical specification. He takes out his journal and makes a final note, an observation on the chamber's acoustics and capacity, as if for a future report that will never be written. He then climbs to the roof, near the base of the enormous, cold chimney. He sits on the soot-stained bricks, placing his suitcase beside him. He looks out over the camp, his kingdom of ash. This is his masterpiece. A perverse sense of accomplishment, of completion, settles over him. The work was done. The data was gathered. The experiment, though externally terminated, was a success in its internal logic. He has curated the entire process, from selection to disposal, with scientific rigor. It is here in this nadir that the visitor arrives. Not a Soviet soldier, not a liberated prisoner. It is a memory, not a vague recollection, but a visceral, full sensory hallucination. It is his daughter, Lena, not as a young woman, but as he last saw her in 1937, a child of 4, in her summer dress, her hair in careful braids. She is standing at the far end of the crematorium roof, clean and glowing in the dusty air, utterly alien to this landscape. She does not speak. She simply looks at him. Her expression is not one of anger or accusation. It is the open, curious, trusting gaze of a child looking at her father. The gaze that once waited for him to fix a toy, to explain the world. Wolter stares. The professional mask, the armor of detachment, does not just crack, it evaporates. The sheer, unbearable force of this innocent human connection, the very thing he has systematically exterminated for years, hits him with the physical force of a blow. He does not see a ghost. He sees the pole star of his old morality, the reason he told himself he started down this path, to create a safe world for her. And in a horrific, cascading instant, the entire architecture of his justification collapses. The greater good, the health of the Volk, the scientific necessity, all of it crumbles to dust before this single, silent image of pure, untainted love. He realizes, with a clarity that is itself a form of violence, that every checkmark, every pointed finger, every timed gasp of Zyklon B was a betrayal of this child. He did not build a future for her. He drowned the world in blood, and her image is the one thing he cannot sanitize, cannot file away, cannot reduce to data. A sound escapes him, not a sob, not a scream, but a raw, animal groan of existential shattering. He doubles over, as if punched in the gut. He clutches his journal to his chest, but the pages feel like poisoned skin. The suitcase of data is no longer a legacy. It is a coffin filled with the names of children who were someone's Lena. The hallucination fades. He is alone on the roof, the wind biting at him. The Soviet artillery is louder. The real world is minutes away from crashing in. But for Hermann Wolter, the judgment has already arrived. It came not with a tribunal's gavel, but with a child's silent gaze. He has not been found guilty by the world. He has been unmasked by the last remnant of his own soul. He picks up his suitcase. It is impossibly heavy. He descends from the chimney, a man not fleeing retribution, but carrying the full, horrific weight of his own understanding for the first time. The camp is empty, but he is now a prisoner in a jail of his own making, and the sentence is the memory of that look on his daughter's face, forever superimposed on the thousands of faces he sent into the dark. The world has turned inside out. The iron gates of Majdanek, once the final barrier to a sealed universe of suffering, now hang broken, swinging in the wind as a useless ornament. The camp is no longer German. It is a hollow, stinking shell, swarmed by new figures, emaciated survivors moving like ghosts through a familiar nightmare, and the advancing Soviet soldiers, young, hardened, their faces a mixture of battle fatigue and stunned, incomprehensible horror at the industrial charnel house they have uncovered. Dr. Hermann Wolter is no longer there. He did not wait for the thunder of T-34 tanks on the camp road. In the chaotic, silent hours before the collapse became absolute, he performed his final act of bureaucratic self-erasure. He did not become a fugitive in the dramatic sense. He did not join the frantic columns of retreating troops. He executed a disappearance as meticulous and cold as any of his selections. This chapter is a descent into a different kind of abyss, the gray, anonymous non-existence of the vanished. We follow Wolter's journey not as an SS officer, but as a ghost in the machinery of a defeated nation. He shed his uniform in an abandoned warehouse, burning it in a rusted drum, watching the insignia blacken and curl. From a hidden cache, the pragmatic foresight of a man who understood data could become evidence, he retrieved the belongings of a dead man. The worn civilian suit, the identity papers of one Friedrich Weber, a low-level clerk from Leipzig, reported missing in an air raid. The papers were not perfect forgeries. They were real, stolen from the camp's administrative chaos, making them infinitely more convincing. The transformation is physical and profound. He cuts his own hair brutally short, not in the clean SS style, but in an uneven, desperate hack. He does not shave, allowing a ragged, graying stubble to cover his jaw. He rubs dirt into the pores of his hands, permanently stained with ink, to mask their surgeon's steadiness. He practices a slight stoop, a tremor in his posture. the bearing of a broken, insignificant man. The eyes are the hardest to change. He must deaden the sharp, assessing gaze, replace it with the vacant, weary look of 1,000,000 displaced souls. He practices in a sliver of broken mirror until the man he was is no longer visible, even to himself. His journey westward is a crawl through the carcass of the Reich. He moves at night, along secondary roads choked with refugees, defeated soldiers, and the desperate. He says nothing unless absolutely necessary, his voice a mumbled, deferential whisper. He sleeps in ditches, in bombed-out cellars, among strangers who are too exhausted by their own survival to look closely at another hollow face. He witnesses the final, spasmodic violence of the regime, summary executions, the murder of deserters by fanatical boys in uniform, and feels nothing but a cold, clinical disdain. It is more inefficiency, more wasted energy. The core of the chapter is his arrival in a small, anonymous town in what will become the American zone. The town is a nexus of chaos, refugees, displaced persons, Allied soldiers, and locals simply trying to exist in the rubble. It is the perfect place to dissolve. He finds a room in a boarding house run by a weary and curious widow. The room is a cell, a narrow bed, a chair, a small table, a window looking out onto a shattered courtyard. It is a universe away from his Berlin study, from his SS quarters, from his private barracks room of trophies. It is perfect. Here, the true disintegration begins. Friedrich Weber secures a menial job as a night janitor in a municipal building that houses both German civil records and a small American military administration office. The irony is exquisite. He pushes a mop through corridors where the new order is being built, literally cleaning up the debris of the old. He empties trash bins containing the paperwork of the fledgling denazification committees, crude initial attempts to sort the guilty from the merely compliant. He sees his own kind, former low-level functionaries, minor party members, filling out forms, pleading their cases, trying to construct plausible lies. He feels a distant, icy contempt for their clumsiness. They lack his discipline, his understanding of how to truly erase oneself. He returns each dawn to his room. He does not drink to forget. He does not pray for forgiveness. He sits in the silent gray half-light, and he waits, not for capture, not for redemption, but for the internal noise to stop. The horror is no longer in the world around him. It is in the silence within, the frantic, justifying machinery of his mind. The graphs, the data, the logical constructs, has ground to a halt. All that remains is the raw, unprocessed footage of memory, playing on a continuous, silent loop. The pointing finger, the hiss of the gas, the small red shoe, the pile of eyeglasses. And over it all, the silent, judging eyes of his daughter, Lena, superimposed on the face of every child on the ramp. He tries to open his leather suitcase, the one thing he carried through the collapse. His hands refuse. It sits under his bed, a squat, dark presence. It no longer feels like a treasured archive. It feels like a container for a radioactive soul, pulsing with a poison he can no longer bear to look at. He is not haunted by ghosts of the dead. He is haunted by the ghost of the man he was, and that ghost is locked in the case with the data. One morning after his shift, he stands at the window. An American jeep rumbles through the street below. German children, thin but alive, run after it, not in fear, but in curiosity. He watches them. He does not see specimens or data points. He sees children. and for a fleeting second he remembers what it was to feel simple, human warmth without calculation. But the memory is immediately scorched by the knowledge of what he did to children who laughed just like that. The cognitive dissonance is a physical pain, a nausea that has nothing to do with hunger. He has not been punished by the world. He has been forced to re-inhabit his own conscience, and he finds it is an uninhabitable wasteland. The uniform is gone, the title is gone, the power is gone. All that remains is Hermann Wolter, alone in a silent room, with the unimaginable weight of what he has done finally, fully and irrevocably resting on his own shoulders. The disappearance is complete. Friedrich Weber is a hollow shell. And inside, the real Hermann Wolter is trapped forever, a screaming prisoner in the oubliette of his own memory. Time in the gray room of Friedrich Weber has congealed into a thick, viscous substance. The seasons turn outside the grimy window. The sharp light of summer softens into the melancholic gold of autumn, then bleeds into the long, damp gray of a German winter. The town is rebuilding. It sounds a steady percussion of hammers and saws, the birth cries of a new world. Inside the room, there is only the silent, endless excavation of the old one. Hermann Wolter, now a ghost in his own skin, has perfected the art of non-existence. His janitorial work is a study in invisibility. He moves through the municipal building like a draft, eyes cast down, registering nothing, remembered by no one. He has become the perfect prisoner, and his cell is the architecture of his own mind. The suitcase remains under the bed, a dormant black organ, its contents metastasizing in the dark. The chapter's spine is a simple, devastating routine. Each evening, upon returning from his shift, Wolter performs a ritual. He lights the single weak bulb. He washes his hands in the small basin, scrubbing with a rough brush until the skin is red and raw. He is not cleaning off dirt. He is trying to scour off memory. The feel of the calipers, the texture of a child's hair in a stolen brush, the imagined grit of ash. Then he stands before the small mottled mirror hanging above the basin. This is his tribunal. This is his confessional. This is where the confrontation he both fears and craves takes place every single night. He stares into his own eyes. He is not looking for Friedrich Weber, the meek janitor. He is hunting for Dr. Hermann Wolter of the SS. He searches for the cold clarity, the arrogant certainty, the man who could correlate suffering with statistical efficiency. But that man is gone. The face that stares back is that of an old man, though he is not old. The eyes are hollow wells, the windows to a soul that has witnessed its own demolition. The reflection shows only a profound, unanswerable exhaustion. The silence in the room is not empty. It is a densely packed theater where the past performs on a continuous, hellish loop. As he stares, the mirror seems to warp. He does not see hallucinations of victims. He sees scenes reflected behind his own ghostly image. The clean click of his pen in 1937 Berlin dissolves into the cacophony of the Majdanek ramp. The warm sunlight of his daughter's room bleeds into the harsh searchlights of the Appellplatz. The trusting eyes of his first patient are replaced by the terror-filled eyes of 1,000 selections, all staring back at him from the glass. He has become the archive he tried to preserve. His mind is the ledger now, and every entry is a screaming testament to his guilt. The data has transcended paper. It is encoded in his heartbeat, in the twitch of his finger, in the very rhythm of his breath. He tried to objectify humanity, and in the end, His own humanity has become an object of unbearable study. One evening, the routine fractures. The sounds from the street below are different, louder. There is a commotion. He does not go to the window. He already knows with a chilling certainty that has nothing to do with reason. The new world is finally coming for the old. He hears car doors, brisk official footsteps on the stairs, a firm knock on his landlady's door downstairs, muffled voices. The sounds are not panicked. They are methodical, administrative. They are the sounds he knows better than any other, the sounds of a system processing a case. He does not move to run. He does not reach for a weapon or a poison pill. Flight is impossible. The only territory left to defend is the tiny, sovereign nation of his final moment. He turns from the door and looks back at the mirror. The knocking comes again, closer now, on his own door. A voice, calm, alien, calls a name. Not Wolter, but Herr Weber. In that final second, as the door handle turns, Hermann Wolter makes his last selection. He chooses to see, not the reflection of the broken janitor, but the true reflection he has been avoiding. He lets the last wall fall. And in the glass, he does not see a monster, nor a victim. He sees the perfect, terrible product of an era. A man who chose logic over love, system over soul, clean numbers over messy humanity. He sees the precise, devastating cost of that choice etched into every line on his face. The door opens behind him. Boots step into the room. He does not turn. His eyes remain locked on the reflection of his own eyes in the mirror. The moment stretches. The officials see a ragged, elderly man staring at his own haunted face. They see Friedrich Weber. But in the mirror, Hermann Wolter finally meets the gaze of the man from the ramp, from the gas chamber roof, from the ledger. He offers no defense. He utters no last words. The judgment he feared from the world is meaningless. The only verdict that matters is the one he has been living every second in this room, the one he sees confirmed in the absolute, unflinching truth of the ruined face in the glass. He turns slowly, finally, to face the living. His hands, for the first time in years, are perfectly still. The tremor is gone. The performance is over. He is not Friedrich Weber. He is not a doctor. He is simply the answer to a question the world is only just beginning to learn how to ask. He meets the eyes of the officer, and in that silent exchange, everything is communicated. The chase is over. The patient has finally diagnosed himself. The chapter ends not with a bang or a whisper, but with the profound, echoing silence of a door finally being opened on a room that has been sealed shut for a very, very long time.